right? I hope everything is okay. Right, see, in unit 3, we are going to discuss about functions of several variables. And this is the broad outline of our syllabus. So we need to discuss about some mean value theorems, namely Rolle's, Lagrange's and Cauchy's mean value theorems. In fact, we discuss only their statements, without proofs. Of course, I'll give you some geometrical interpretation of those three theorems as well. Then we'll move on to expansion of any function, right, as an infinite sum. So that's we discuss about using these Taylor's or Maclaurin series expansion. Then see, in fact, up to this series expansion, it is still function of single variable only. But yet we have applications of those statements in these things, partial differentiation or maxima minima. Starting from partial differentiation, we discuss functions of several variables, right? I hope you know. During the last 2 units, we discussed about only functions of one variable. But from now, especially from partial differentiation onwards, we discuss about functions of more than one variable, right? Like functions of 2 variables, functions of 3 variables, and so on. And see then, we had discussed about when a function of one variable gets its minimum or maximum, right? In a similar way, when you are given a function of 2 variables or 3 variables, we need to see where that function attains its minimum or maximum. Okay, so that we discuss particularly in this section, maxima and minima. And in fact, this Lagrange's method of multipliers, it is an alternate method to find out this minimum or maximum. Okay, so anyway, we'll discuss them in detail, but to begin with, for today, let us just concentrate on these 3 theorems, right? Rolle's theorem, Lagrange's mean value theorem, and Cauchy's mean value theorem. And see particularly why we are studying this. See, if you take any mean value theorem, either of these 3 theorems, they play an important theoretical role in connecting the average and instantaneous rates of change, right? See, when you are given a function of one variable, I hope you remember what do you mean by this rate of change, right? See, if you are given one function f of x, and let us say if this function is defined in between some a comma b, right? Now see, if you take these 2 endpoints, let us say this is capital A, where the coordinates of this point are a comma f of a, right? At a, the function value is f of a. And let us say this is the point B, where the function, the coordinates of this point are b comma f of b. Now see, if this function, if it moves along a line joining these 2 points a comma b, right? See, the function is a linear expression which joins these 2 points. Like, straight line means something like ax plus b, linear expression. If f of x is a linear expression which joins these 2 points, a and capital B, then if you calculate the rate of change of this function f of x along this line, we get the rate of change as the slope of this line. And how we calculate that rate of change, you see, it is this, f of b minus f of a divided by b minus a, right? In fact, we call this as average change, right? It is the average change, when the function directly moves from a to b along this straight line. In other way, see, normally the function may move in any arbitrary direction. It may not be linear every time. But see, when the function moves from point A to point B in an arbitrary path like this, then you cannot calculate this average change. Instead, you can calculate the instantaneous change at any particular point C, right? If I take this is point C on this real line. Now at this point C, you can calculate f dash of C. What this f dash of C represents? It is the instantaneous change at point C. Now see, we are trying to connect this instantaneous change and this average change, right? We are trying to establish a relationship between these 2 changes. Okay, of course there are points where these 2 are equal, right? So we are going to see them one after the other, right? So let's begin with Rolle's theorem first and see, look at the statements. Perhaps if I am correct, most of you have studied Rolle's theorem in intermediate already. Okay, anyway, let me just recall that. If you remember, it's well and good. Otherwise, try to learn it now. Now see, if you are given a function f of x, right? You are given a function of one variable f of x. Understand, if this is a continuous on the closed interval a comma b, and even it is a differentiable function in the open interval a comma b. Normally, as you know, we never verify differentiability at the end points. That's how we take this as open interval, correct? So, you are given a function f of x which is continuous in the closed interval and differentiable in the open interval a comma b. Along with these two conditions, if the function values at the end points are also same, if the function values at the end points are also same, then Rolle's theorem says there exists at least one point in between a and b such that f dash of c is exactly equal to 0. Right? What happens here, you see, if you just think of it, with a simple example, like you see, if you understand, first of all, understand it this way. See, you are given some point a and b, right? You are given some interval a and b. Now see, you are defining this function f of x between these two values. Understand it is continuous as well as differentiable, right? And see how you want this function. You want this function to be continuous, right? Let it be something like this. Something, it may go anywhere. But see, again at the end point b, if it is starting at this point a, at the other end point also, you must get the same function value. So even if it is increasing for some time, to get the same function value at this point, it should come down for sure. Isn't it? So definitely, even though it is increasing function, or you see, in other ways, it may be something like this also. It may be a decreasing function for some time, right? Even if it is a decreasing function, to get the same function value at the other end point, again, it should be increasing after certain time. It should be something like this. It may be something like this also, right? In either ways, you will get either a convex function or a concave function like this, right? So for example, you got a convex function like this. Understand it this way, right? See, the function is increasing when it starts at a, the function is increasing for some time, and then to reach b, it is a decreasing function then, right? It is moving up and then coming down. Now see, when you are given a function of this kind, understand it is a hill-like structure, as you know. You are climbing this using a cycle, right? Now see, if you bike up this kind of hill, then you back down. Understand, there exists some instant, there exists some point where the elevation will be stationary. Isn't it? When you are climbing up using a cycle, right? And then of course you are coming down. There exists, definitely there exists one point where the elevation of this function, elevation of this hill will be stationary, right? What does that mean? Mathematically speaking, when you are given a function of this kind, when it is continuous, when it is differentiable, when the function values at the end points are also equal, then see, there exists at least one point C such that, see, if you calculate a tangent at this point, this tangent is exactly parallel to x-axis, right? When a tangent will be parallel to x-axis, whenever the slope of this tangent is equals to 0. In fact, what do you mean by this f dash of c? F dash of c represents slope of the tangent at this point c, right? So you will get slope of this tangent is equals to 0. Whenever the slope of tangent is equal to 0, then that tangent line will be parallel to x-axis, right? So geometrically, what happens here, see, whenever you are given a function f of x, which is continuous, differentiable, and the function values at the end points, both are equal. If a function satisfies these three conditions, then Rolle's theorem says there exists a point C. There exists a point C at which, if you calculate a tangent, if you draw a tangent, that tangent is parallel to x-axis for sure. See, you may not get a single point. You may get more than one point also, more than one such points here. See, you may be given a graph of this kind. Let us say this is A and this is somewhere B. Now see, the graph is something like this. But see, wherever it is started at A, exactly the function value at B is also on the same line. right? Exactly at A and B, the function values are same. Clearly the function is continuous, and of course let us assume it is differentiable also. Then see, you can find now several points at this point, even here, at this point, even here also. At almost 5 points, you can draw a tangent, and at every point the tangent is parallel to x-axis, right? That's what Rolle's theorem says. When the function is continuous and differentiable, and along with them, even if the function values at the end points are also same, then you will get at least 1 point. Not exactly one, maybe one, maybe more than one also. You will get multiple points sometimes. But if you draw a tangent at all these points, the tangents will be parallel to x-axis. I mean, the slope at that particular point will be 0. In fact, you see, if I take a slope here, in fact, see, when I say slope at that point, that is instantaneous change, instantaneous slope, instantaneous rate of change it is. So Rolle's theorem says when function follows all these conditions, then there exists at least 1 point within the interval a comma b where the instantaneous rate of change will be equal to 0, right? If you calculate the average change, it may be something else. I'm not directly connecting these two in Rolle's theorem, but Rolle's theorem says at some point definitely instantaneous change will be equals to 0, right? So instantaneous change will be equal to 0. If you speak that in terms of speed, because you are climbing up, right? Rolle's theorem says, see, if you are cycling it up and then you are coming down, if you take such a way, there exists 1 point C where that instantaneous velocity will be equal to 0. If you speak it in terms of speed here, you will get 1 point C where the instantaneous velocity will be equal to 0. See, because you have a peak here, there is no need to take any speed here because you need to change the velocity here, right? So while going up, the velocity may be much less, but when you start coming down, the velocity try to increase, isn't it? So exactly at this peak, the instant, see, it's a change of velocity. Definitely at a particular point, you must get 0 velocity. It is much less than 0, and then again it moves up. Velocity goes up, right? So that's what Rolle's theorem says geometrically here. Now see what we are going to do here. When you are given a function, mathematically, when you are given a function, we are going to verify whether Rolle's theorem will be applicable or not for that particular function. Right? So let's take a simple example of this kind. Now see, you are given this function, let us say x square plus 2x, and understand this is the function which is defined in the interval minus 2 comma 0. Right? Now we need to see whether Rolle's theorem can be applicable to this function or not. How can we say it is applicable? As the statement says, if we can find at least one value c which lies in between these two such that f dash of c is equal to 0, then we can say Rolle's theorem is verified or Rolle's theorem can be applicable to this function, right? So then see, what are the 3 conditions of Rolle's theorem if you recall them? F of x must be continuous, it must be differentiable, and then function values at the end points. What are the end points here? See, the interval of definition is this, minus 2 comma 0. The end points are minus 2 and 0. At these 2 points, function values must be equal. If the given function satisfies these 3 conditions, then definitely Rolle's theorem says there exists 1 point C such that f dash of c is equal to 0. We need to verify whether such a C exists or not. Right? That's what we need to verify here. Let us see. And moreover, let me tell you one more point. We need to verify whether the given function is continuous or not. We need to verify whether it is differentiable or not. In fact, as we discussed in previous units, to verify whether a function is continuous or not, we need to use this condition. What it is, whether limit extends to, let us say if you are verifying it at a. So we need to verify all these 3 conditions. Limit extends to a minus f of x is equal to limit extends to a plus f of x, right? By this we can say limit exists or not. If limit exists, whether this is equal to the function value at a or not. When these three are equal, then only we can say that function is continuous at a, right? But see, we want this function to be continuous throughout the interval, not exactly at 1 point or 2 points. We want it to be continuous throughout the interval. and nobody can know how many such points are there in that interval. There are uncountable number of points in this interval. So obviously, verification of continuity at all these points is absolutely impossible. You cannot do that. But then how to verify continuity? We just follow some standard ideas. Like, as you know, when you are given a polynomial function, that polynomial function is always continuous. When you are given a logarithmic expression is always continuous for all positive values. When you are given exponential function, it is always continuous, right? When you are given some trigonometric functions like sin x or cos x, they are always continuous, right? See, for example, if you are given a function of this kind, a rational function of this kind, x cube plus 3x divided by x plus 2. If let us say this function is defined in the interval minus 2 comma 0, right? Understand, when you take x is equal to minus 2, see, you are getting a 0 in the denominator, isn't it? Since you are getting a 0 in the denominator, at this point minus 2, that function doesn't exist. When the function doesn't exist, it is not continuous, right? By the way, by chance, if you are given this as x plus 1, then see, there is a minus 1 in this point, in this interval. At that minus 1 again, see, you will get a 0 in the denominator, isn't it? So at that point, since the function doesn't exist, you can say the function is not continuous, right? Like this, by using some standard ideas, we need to identify whether that function is continuous or not, right? Nothing else. We don't use the idea of all these limits now, right? Because as you can understand, you cannot verify continuity at all these uncountable number of points. That is absolutely not possible. So we just proceed with these standard ideas to check whether that function is continuous or not. All right. Anyway, since you are given a polynomial function here, you are given it as simply x square plus 2x. Since it is a polynomial function, and as polynomial functions are continuous everywhere, you can simply say it is continuous everywhere. See how it was written here. F of x is continuous in minus 2 comma 0 as it is a quadratic function. Quadratic function or a polynomial function, you can speak it in either ways, right? When you are given a polynomial function, it is continuous throughout this interval. You can simply conclude like this, right? Then how to say it is differentiable? Normally what you can do here, let us say, this function, you are given it as x square plus 2x. To verify whether it is differentiable or not, first differentiate it. See, f dash of x. If I differentiate this, you will get it like this, 2x plus 2. See whether this f dash of x exists or not for all these values minus 2 comma 0. Right? How I got this interval? See, the interval what you are given here, but I'm taking only the open interval. Now see, if f dash of x exists for all values of this open interval, you can then say f of x is differentiable, right? If f dash of x exists, if this exists for all x belongs to this open interval, then you can say f of x is differentiable. If f dash of x, when f dash of x exists, then you can say f of x is differentiable, right? And see here, we got f dash of x as 2x plus 2. As we know, it is also a polynomial. Because it is also a polynomial, definitely that exists for all these values, minus 2 to 0. Since f dash of x exists for all values of x, you can then say f of x is differentiable everywhere in the open interval minus 2 comma 0. Right? How I am concluding that? Because f dash of x exists for sure. That's how I can say it is differentiable everywhere. Right? Now see, I have verified continuity and even the differentiability also. Because the function f of x is both continuous as well as differentiable, I can check now the third condition. Right? What is the third condition? Function values at the endpoints must be same. So I need to now calculate f of minus 2 and then f of 0. If these two are equal, then I can go for verification of Rolle's mean value theorem. See, I've just calculated f of minus 2 here. See, this is f of x. Now in this expression, I'm just substituting x is equal to minus 2. So it is see minus 2 whole square. Minus 2 whole square, this is minus 2 whole square plus 2 into minus 2. So when it is minus 2 whole square, it is 4 plus 2 into minus 2 is also, it is 4. So it is 4 minus 4, which you get it as 0. Then similarly, when you calculate function value at 0, because if you substitute x is equal to 0 in this, see, we get it as simply 0 only. So see, function values at the end points, both at minus 2 as well as 0, we got the function value as 0. Therefore, you can say f of minus 2 is equal to f of 0. Since the function values at the end points are 0, then see, all the three conditions of Rolle's theorem are satisfied. So we can definitely verify Rolle's theorem for this particular function, right? Now, what we need to verify? We need to find a point, at least one point C, such that f dash of C is equal to 0. So to verify this, see, as we did already, f dash of x, we got it as 2x plus 2. Now see, I'm just verifying f dash of C is equals to 0. Right now, we got f dash of x as this, 2x plus 2. In this expression, I'm now substituting x is equal to C. So what happens to f dash of C then? It is 2c plus 2. And I'm just equating this f dash of C to 0. By equating f dash of C is equals to 0, see, we get the value of C as minus 1. Right? Now see, what we need to verify? We need to verify such a C exists or not. Right? See, we got C as minus 1 now. Now let us see whether this C lies in between this interval or not. Because see, that what is that condition? There exists at least one C in the open interval minus 2 comma 0, such that f dash of C is equal to 0. Right? Now by equating f dash of C to 0, we got one value for C, which is minus 1. Now we need to verify whether that C minus 1 lies in between this interval or not. Yes, this minus 1 is a point in between minus 2 and 0. Since we got one C which is within the open interval of minus 2 comma 0, we can say, therefore, Rolle's theorem is verified. Right? How you said this is verified? Because as theorem states, since all the three conditions are satisfied, we need to find at least one point in the open interval a comma b, such that f dash of C is equal to 0. Yes, we considered this condition f dash of C is equal to 0, and we found one value C which lies in between this open interval minus 2 comma 0. Since we can find this point C, we can say it is verified. Right? Since we got a point C in between minus 2 comma 0, we can say it is verified. Now see, let us just extend this idea to the second mean value theorem. You see, it is Lagrange's mean value theorem. I can say Lagrange's mean value theorem, it is an extension of Rolle's mean value theorem. Right? And look at this, what it says. Lagrange's mean value theorem states, if a function f of x is continuous on a closed interval a comma b and differentiable in the open interval a comma b. See, the major difference between Rolle's and Lagrange's is Rolle's theorem has three conditions. In fact, the first two conditions are same in both the theorems. The third condition, whatever you have, function values at the endpoints are same. I mean, f of a is equal to f of b. We are simply ignoring that condition in Lagrange's mean value theorem. Right? So, as Lagrange's mean value theorem says, if you are given a function f of x, which is continuous in the closed interval a comma b, and it is differentiable in the open interval a comma b, only thus much. If these two conditions are satisfied, then there exists again at least one point C, such that f dash of C is equals to f of b minus f of a divided by b minus a. Right? See, this is what you need to understand simply. In fact, we consider Lagrange's mean value theorem as simply mean value theorem because it is the most general form. Understand it this way. You are given one function f of x, which is both continuous and differentiable. Let us say this is the point capital A where the coordinates are a comma f of a, and this is the point B where the coordinates of this point are b comma f of b. Now see, as we discussed a few minutes ago, this is the line joining AB, the chord AB. If you directly calculate the average change from A to B, it is given by this, f of b minus f of a divided by b minus a. And then if you calculate the instantaneous change at C, instantaneous change at C, it is f dash of C. Now see what Lagrange's mean value theorem says us. When you are given a function f of x, which is continuous and differentiable within the interval a comma b, then there exists at least one point C where the instantaneous change is exactly equal to this average change, right? Assume it like this. You are traveling in a car from one location to the other location. You are traveling from point A to point B, and there is a very big lake in between these two destinations. So you cannot just travel along over this, right? So you can just travel in a path like this, right? When you are traveling in this direction, see directly if you calculate the average speed when you travel from point A to point B, if the velocity is given by this, not velocity, the displacement is given by this function f of x. You are traveling from point A to point B, that displacement is given by this particular function, right? And at each instant along this path, you can calculate some velocity. So if you want to calculate the velocity, average velocity after completion of this journey, that average velocity can be calculated by this formula, f of b minus f of a divided by b minus a. That is the average velocity when you when you travel from point A to point B, right? Then within this journey, Lagrange's mean value theorem says us, during your journey, you will get one point. Let us say it is C. At this point, if you calculate the instantaneous velocity, that instantaneous velocity will be exactly equal to this average velocity, right? What do you mean by that? See, if I speak mathematically, when a function satisfies these two conditions, when it is continuous as well as differentiable, mathematically speaking, you will get at least one point C where the tangent is parallel to this line joining, right? When the slope is equal to slope of this line, average rate of change is nothing but slope of this line. So when a function is continuous and differentiable within this interval a comma b, you will get at least one point where the tangent at that point is parallel to the line joining these 2 points a comma b, right? That's a basic geometrical meaning of Lagrange's mean value theorem. Now let us again consider a problem to verify Lagrange's mean value theorem, right? Look at this function. In fact, this is what we are speaking about. Lagrange's mean value theorem says simply there exists a moment of time where the instantaneous speed or instantaneous velocity will be equal to the average velocity, right? So that's what we discussed. Now let us look at this function. See, you are given this as the function x square minus 3x plus 5, and it is defined in the interval 1 comma 4. Now see, let us observe whether Lagrange's mean value theorem can be validated or not for this function. Of course, this in this interval 1 comma 4. See this way. As usually, as we discussed in the previous problem, since this is a polynomial function, it is obviously continuous. To check differentiable or not, let me just calculate the derivative of this function f dash of x. As you know, it is 2x minus 3. Since this is the derivative of that function, you can see again it is also a polynomial, and even this also exists for all values of this interval 1 comma 4. Right? We must take open interval. Right? For all the values in this open interval 1 comma 4, since f dash of x exists, we can say f of x is differentiable also. Right? Now, as you can understand, f of x is both continuous as well as differentiable. Right? Those two conditions are enough now. Then Lagrange's mean value theorem can be applied. Right? And what it says, when these two conditions hold, then definitely there exists at least one point C satisfying this condition. What it is? F dash of C is equals to f of b minus f of a divided by b minus a. Now we need to verify whether such a C exists or not. Okay, let us just proceed. As we verified already, we got f dash of x as 2x minus 3. Now, I'm just using this condition, f dash of c is equal to f of b minus f of a divided by b minus a, right? See, I'm just substituting x is equal to c in this f dash of x. Now see, we got f dash of x as the 2x minus 3 here. I'm substituting x is equal to c. So we get like this, 2c minus 3. This is what f dash of c is equal to. We need to now calculate f of b. What is b here? You see the interval is this, a comma b. So you can understand a is equal to 1 and b is equals to 4. Right? So we need to calculate it like this, f of 4 minus f of 1. Let me just write it like this, f of 4 minus f of 1 divided by 4 minus 1. Now see, let us calculate this way. See what it is. F of 4 means you are just substituting x is equal to 4 in this expression. So when you calculate f of 4, see what you get, 4 square minus 3 times 4 plus 5. I've just substituted x is equal to 4 in this. So how much it is? 16 minus 12 plus 5. See how much you'll get? 16 plus 5, 21. 21 minus 12, it is 9. So we get f of 4 as 9 minus f of 1. See here I'm substituting x is equal to 1. 1 square minus 3 into 1 plus 5. So we'll get like this, 1 square is 1 minus 3 plus 5. So 6 minus 3. See, we get f of 1 as 3 minus 4 minus 1 is also 3. So we get, you see how much it is? 9 minus 3. 6 by 3, so we get it as 2. So we got, 2c minus 3 is equals to 5. In fact, we are just trying to see how much is c. Let me just calculate it like this. 2c is equal to, if I send this minus 3 to the other side, it becomes plus 3. So 2 plus 3, it is 5. So therefore, you can write c is equals to 5 by 2, or you can write c is equals to 2.5. Correct? So we got this value c as 2.5. This is what we need to verify, whether this 2.5 lies within this interval or not. Yes, exactly 2.5 is a point within this interval. So this belongs to the interval, open interval 1, 4. Since we got a point c within this open interval 1, 4, we can say, therefore, Lagrange's mean value theorem is verified or validated. Right? How we are saying that? We are verifying whether such a c exists, whether such a c exists or not. Yes, we got it. We got a c in between 1 and 4. Since we found a point c in between 1 and 4, we can say Lagrange's mean value theorem is validated or verified. Right? So like this, we need to verify Lagrange's mean value theorem. So to verify Lagrange's mean value theorem, we need to verify exactly two conditions: whether the given function f of x is continuous or not, whether the given function f of x is differentiable or not. Then it is enough. You can verify Lagrange's mean value theorem. In fact, we can say Lagrange's mean value theorem is the generalization of Rolle's mean value theorem. I mean, you can get back to Rolle's mean value theorem from this Lagrange's mean value theorem. See what condition we ignored in this Lagrange's mean value theorem. The condition we ignored here is, apart from, if you compare with Rolle's mean value theorem, the condition we ignored is this: f of a is equals to f of b. If you consider that condition also here in Lagrange's mean value theorem, when you consider f of a is equal to f of b, this numerator becomes 0. So that automatically you get back to what you call Rolle's theorem, right? So that's how we are saying Lagrange's mean value theorem is generalization of Rolle's mean value theorem. If you consider the third condition of Rolle's mean value theorem in this Lagrange's, automatically you'll get back to Rolle's mean value theorem only, right? So like this, anyway, we do few more problems after completion of the next theorem. Don't worry, this is just for an idea. Let me also discuss the next one, Cauchy's mean value theorem, little quickly. In fact, see, understand it this way. Cauchy's mean value theorem is the most general form of Lagrange's mean value theorem. I mean, see, normally, in fact, to use Lagrange's mean value theorem, we define function with only single variable, right? You may be given this, it is defined in the interval, let us say a comma b. But see, when you are given this function in parametric form, I mean, you are given a function, let us say f of xy is equals to 0. You may be given a function like this, and you may be given it like this. You see, both x and y, they are again functions of t. Right? When you are given functions of this kind, then we cannot directly use Lagrange's mean value theorem. In that case, we use Cauchy's mean value theorem to verify that, what we call relation, to connect that instantaneous change and average change, right? So this is the basic idea behind Cauchy's mean value theorem, but these two are not too different from one another, right? Lagrange's and Cauchy's, they are almost similar, but when you are given a function in parametric form, we try to use Cauchy's mean value theorem, right? So with this simple idea, look at it carefully. Now let us say you are given two functions f of x and g of x, similar to this u of t and g of t. I mean u of t and v of t. You are given two other functions, let us say f of x and g of x. When you are given two functions f of x and g of x, and understand both are defined in this interval a comma b only. Both functions must be defined in this same interval. Moreover, both must be continuous as well as differentiable. Right? These two functions must be continuous in the closed interval a comma b, and both must be differentiable in the open interval a comma b. Moreover, this g dash, it must be not equal to 0 for all x belongs to this open interval a comma b. Then, if these conditions is satisfied for both the functions, then Cauchy's mean value theorem says there exists at least a point c again in the open interval a comma b such that f dash of c divided by g dash of c is equal to f of b minus f of a divided by g of b minus g of a. See how Lagrange's mean value theorem is extended here. In the case of one function, we have written it like this: f dash of c is equals to f of b minus f of a divided by b minus a. This is what we have written in the case of Lagrange's mean value theorem. But when you have another function here, we can write it like this: f dash of c divided by g dash of c is equal to, corresponding to this g, we can write one more term in the denominator like this: g of b minus g of a divided by b minus a again. I mean b minus a again. But since these two are in the denominator, as they are equal, you can just cancel these two, from which actually you get this expression: f dash of c divided by g dash of c is equal to f of b minus f of a divided by g of b minus g of a. Right? Anyway, remember it this way simply: when you are given a function in parametric form, or when you are given two different functions, we can use Cauchy's mean value theorem to verify the connection between instantaneous change and average change. Right? That's a basic idea here. This is what I was speaking about when you are given the function in parametric form. Right? Now let us just try to solve this simple problem. Take these two functions, f of x is equals to x power 4. Please allow me to continue it for another 2 or 3 minutes. Like, see, if you are given a function like x power 4 and another function x square, let us try to verify Cauchy's mean value theorem for these two functions. Right? Now, to verify Cauchy's mean value theorem, we want these two functions to should be, we want those two functions to be continuous as well as differentiable. As you can see here, both are polynomial expressions, x power 4 or x square. Since both are polynomial expressions, you can understand both are continuous, right? And even if you differentiate them, as you can see here, differentiation of x power 4, it is 4x cube. 4x cube also, it's a polynomial expression. So it exists for all values of x. And even when you differentiate g of x, see, x square differentiation is 2x. So even 2x exists for all values of x. So therefore, since f dash of x and g dash of x exist, you can say both f of x as well as g of x are differentiable, right? So clearly, both f of x as well as g of x, they are continuous and even they are differentiable also, right? Moreover, we have one more condition. We want g dash of x to be not equal to 0 for all x belongs to this open interval a comma b. See, what you got g dash of x, it is 2x. 2x becomes 0 only when x is 0. But see, 0 is out of this interval. See, the interval is 1 comma 2. So 0 is not part of that. That's how we can even say g dash of x is not equal to 0 for all x belongs to this interval 1 comma 2. Right? Then since all the three conditions are satisfied, what are the three conditions? Both f of x and g of x are continuous. both f of x and g of x are differentiable. Moreover, g dash of x is not equal to 0 for all x belongs to that interval 1, 2. Since these conditions are satisfied, then we can find at least one point C which satisfies this condition. Right? We can find at least one point C which satisfies this condition. Now let me just continue this. What happens? Let us see. Can we find such C or not? To verify that, I'm just for my convenience, I'm proceeding with A and B as they are. Later we can substitute, A is equals to 1 and B is equals to 2. Right? Now see, if you substitute x is equal to b in f of x, it is b power 4 minus a power 4 because f of x is x power 4. So it is b power 4 minus a power 4 divided by g of x is how much? See, it is x square. So when you substitute x is equal to b in this, it is b square minus a square, right? And on the other side, f dash of c, we got, see, f dash of x, we got it like this, 4x cube. So if you substitute x is equal to c in this, see, it is 4c cube, and g dash of x, see, we got g dash of x as 2c. So if you substitute x is equal to c in this, you see, we get 2c. Now see, if you just simplify this, we can write this b power 4 minus a power 4 as, it is just like this, b square whole square minus a square whole square. So that we can write it like this, b square minus a square into b square plus a square. Like a square minus b square can be written as a square minus b square into a square plus b square, isn't it? The same way. We can write it like this, and the same denominator is written as it is. And this b square minus a square can be cancelled here. And what remains here, you see, only b square plus a square on the left hand side and 2c square. How we got 2c square here? You can cancel a c also. So we get 2c square here on the right hand side. So simply what we got here, you see, we got b square plus a square is equals to 2c square. This 2 can be sent to other side. That's how we got here, you see, c square is equals to a square plus b square divided by 2. And if you want c here, you can just take square root on both sides. So when you take square root, as you know, you will get plus or minus square root of a square plus b square by 2. And now if you substitute the values of a and b, like a is equal to 1 and b is equal to 2 here, if you simplify this, we get the values of c as plus or minus 1.58. But though we got two values here, we cannot take negative values because the interval is defined only in between 1 and 2, right? So that's how we can see only square root of c. 1.58 is more relevant here because this 1.58 lies in between 1, 2, right? Since we found a point C in between 1 and 2 which satisfies this condition, we can say Cauchy's mean value theorem is verified, right? Cauchy's mean value theorem is validated in this interval. I hope you understood this. Let us take a few more problems in the next class.